This episode was co-produced by Startup Days, a yearly matchmaking event in Switzerland for startups, investors, corporates, and other key players. Check out startupdays.ch to learn more about this year's edition, taking place in Bern on May 25th. Again, that's startupdays.ch.
You have to imagine that around 25 to 30% of all the premiums that an insurance collects is burned by their internal admin costs, the way we interact with our customers, because most insurances do that through email, phone, and like some unstructured forms, and we just have it very structured, and that allows us to have a lot of automation internally.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Fabian, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
The pleasure is mine, Sylvan. Thanks for the invitation.
You're the co-founder at Grape, a digital employee insurance that improves team health. Before we talk about that, I actually want to start with your personal background a little bit. Already during your bachelor's, you worked at Startup Campus in Switzerland, and you're also a member at the ETH Entrepreneur Club. What was it about the startup world and entrepreneurship in particular that really excited you?
That's a good question. I guess the seed for the fascination of startups itself was originally planted by my family, because my mother and my grandfather, they were both professional endurance athletes. And so kind of this topic of high performance and like working hard for a long-term goal was something that I could see very early on. But then also personally discovered that like sports itself wasn't the thing that's going to satisfy me throughout my life, but really wanted to work with a team, like really have an impact also on other people, but not just on your own performance. And so I think like the startups are kind of the Olympics on a professional level. And so that was something that attracted me very early on.
That's a really cool motivation to start. And since you've been exposed to startups before you actually started your own company, what were some of the expectations you had of the founder life before you started with Grape? And what did the founder life actually turn out to be? Were there huge discrepancies or surprises along the way?
Yeah, definitely. I think most of it was somewhat expected, also thanks to like knowing other founders and being in the ecosystem for quite a bit. But I would say the differences there were really about the pace, because was kind of again using the analogy from sports that there are some races right during the year. There are some moments where you have to perform, but I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's really always the case. So you're always racing, and I think that's something that is hard to grasp before you start your own company, what that really feels like. But also then the notion of when you're always racing, still being able to take some breaks and take a nap and relax. And I think that's something that also took a while for me to learn it. And I think that was one of the larger discrepancies for me.
It's all about the balance. Absolutely. One of our podcast guests once said that entrepreneurship, in his perspective, is basically running a marathon at the pace, at the speed of a sprint. And that sounds very, very intense. Would you confirm this analogy based on your experience these days?
Yes, fully agree. But I appreciate the small stops that you have to take a small break and take some nutrition to you. But I fully agree with the marathon analogy.
Great. And today we want to talk about health solutions, or in your specific case, about employee insurance. If we look at the statistics, more than 80% of employees expect a tangible measure from their company to foster their health, to support them with their health. But the big question here is this really the case? How badly or how well do Swiss employers perform on this regard from their employees?
I would say we should take a look at health itself from a broader perspective, like just take an individual and then also have a look at how the workplace impacts the health of an individual. And therefore, in general, I would say that currently there's a lot going on in the preventative care area, and there's like major, like large progresses made there, but it's really not brought to the masses yet. And that's also where we started initially, that kind of as health geeks, also at ETH Zurich, like trying out everything. We soon realized that there's a lot to try out and a lot to improve your health and your prevention, but really very few people are aware of the techniques that are available, and it's also in most cases too expensive. And I think the financing part is one thing that still I think is a large problem today. Also, when it comes to the workplace again, with when it comes to employee insurance or employee health, that the financing part is something where most of those initiatives break, and they're not really then put into place.
So you basically say that there is an employee insurance in place, also because it's mandatory in Switzerland, but there's much more potential to be unlocked that we don't see getting unlocked because there are usually costs associated with that.
Definitely, and I think one part of it is the cost factor. The other one is also what kind of employee do you reach with a preventative program or with corporate health management. And I think that's something that many health tech startups, but also in general initiatives, struggle with at the moment, that you usually reach the healthy people with your health programs.
Yeah.
And I think that's something where we as an insurance can look at it very differently, because in the end, we're going to work and pay for employees that really get sick. So we're actually more focusing on the population that is currently not doing that well in this regard. And so I think that's also where we originally came from. Right after the studies, we had many projects in the healthcare space itself. So originally we wanted to, we've built a software for doctors to really scale prevention into the healthcare system, but very soon realized that you're mostly only addressing the healthy population already, and not the ones actually in need of it. And so we think the beauty there of the insurance model is that you actually not focus on the ones that are healthy already, but on the ones that are in need of that. And I think that's why we then in the end ended up being an insurance instead of an healthcare service.
That's a very important distinguishment right here, that it chose to be an insurance to really also help the ones in need, the ones that might not be as healthy as possible, that just might need a little bit more support. How did you arrive at this conclusion? Did you just look at the market and say, hey, here's a gap? Or did you gather a lot of feedback and talk to clients? How did you arrive at that conclusion that you need to be an insurance yourself to focus on the people who need you the most?
That's a very good question. And the answer is it was a long and painful process where we really tried to gather as much information as we possibly could. And really I think Grape was, the sixth or seventh idea that we validated. And we've over the course of those almost 1.5 years has become very efficient on validating those ideas, because most of them were in the healthcare sector. But then we realized that that's probably not going to work out. And so we literally sat down, gave each idea 2 weeks to validate itself. And if it didn't kind of show the potential to really scale into the masses and really have the impact that we wish it should have, then we cut it off. And so that was the process that we used. And in the end, we realized, again, connecting with the financing problem that we have of those initiatives, that insurance is a wonderful financial engine in the background that really gives you a lot of liquidity to directly invest into the health of the employees, because in the end, as an insurance, you're also measured on the health of the company. I think so incentives are very much aligned when it comes to how you improve the health of the employees, but also that you can directly finance it. And so we came to the conclusion that this is the perfect fit for our vision to not only serve the healthy ones, but also the ones that currently not doing that well, and then also like combine this with a scalable business model, right? Because insurance as a financial product can scale much faster, and so that's how we try to combine those two areas.
Now I'm really curious because you talked about incentives and having the incentives of basically the employees, the companies, but also the insurances all aligned. How do you do that? How does your solution work and look like to make that happen?
I'd say from a business model perspective, we are integrating, kind of vertically integrating the insurance part with software and health. And that means that as our offering is the employee insurance line, so sick leave and accidents. So we pay the salary and also related costs whenever someone gets sick or has an accident. And now the integration into software and health comes into play through our platform. So it's a software product that kind of automates all your interactions that you have with an insurance. So you don't have to think about insurance anymore. And the platform also provides the HR leader or the HR department with an absence management. And the absence management is in place to better understand the health of the company. But then next to the analytics, also kind of take actions and reduce absenteeism and have kind of tailor-made prevention and absence management programs.
And who is your typical customer? Do you more work with larger companies or mid-sized companies who really have a stronger need for such a solution? Or are you already working with some smaller companies as well?
I would say currently it's both. We're specialized in companies between 50 to 4,000 employees. So I would say it's the large and mid segment, but there are definitely also, I would say, small size companies that are now more and more on the forefront of caring about prevention. And so I think that's also sometimes an offering that's interesting for them.
And I imagine before Grape existed, they were just doing most of that work either manually to then say, hey, we had a case, so I have to reach out to the insurance and fill in some forms, or they were using a broker who also gets very nicely compensated by the insurance companies to handle all of that for them. Is that basically the way that things have been done before Grape existed?
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit it on the head. That currently, like, the process was that usually you just care about the insurance as an insurer and as a broker, and like a health care company only cares about the health part, and then there's also a software company that cares about your process and your software landscape. And I think in our perspective, those three areas need to be coupled much more tightly in order to, in the end, then provide an actual health partner at the side of an employee. And so, yeah, before Grape, there were kind of those three different players that weren't really interacting with each other. And our goal there is to combine those three.
So from that outside perspective, you not only help them to save time, make the process easier, but at the same time, you actually also claim to improve the team health. Can you talk a bit more about how you actually do that? Because that's probably the most challenging thing to do that many insurance companies probably tried, but very few actually succeeded in accomplishing that.
Yes, I mean that's the core question here, right? If we talk about employee health and the way we see health in general at the workplace is also a bit more, I would like, if we add some precision to it, it would be three phases that we're talking about. And the first one is just a preventative phase where a person is not sick, he's doing well, or at least there's no absence. Then there are the short-term absences, so maybe between 1 and 30 days of being sick. And then there are the long-term absences. And currently the focus, and that's quite interesting in the Swiss market, the focus of almost every player is in the preventative phase, so the first one, or the long-term absence case. So that's the one that insurers currently care about, right? If someone claims that the salary of an employee, then they start reacting. And we realized that very early on that the middle phase is actually the one where we can really make a difference. So when an employee is sick from day 1 to day 30, and there are also several studies around this that the effectiveness is the largest, also quite obviously, but it's also scientifically proven when you support an employee already from day 7, for example, and also the costs they're sinking. So if the earlier you can like get a case management and a partner at the employee side in this middle phase, in the short-term absence phase, the cheaper it gets. So you reach more people with the same budget, and it's also more effective. And now you ask, like, why couldn't there have been a service before that, right? To detect,
Of course,
or like to foster this middle phase. And the reason there is very often, and that's rather shocking, that the software landscape is not in place to even kind of handle this amount of absence data and information. Like the radar is not there for HR because it's somewhere distributed in an SAP system where there's also the manager that's involved, and sometimes the employee puts in the data too late, and then there's not an automated reporting in place. And so there's a lot when it comes to the software landscape that's currently not given, or where HR is simply not supported to have this radar to then react, to kind of ring the alarm bells to get an supporter for health. And that's where we see the massive potential, because we're also working together with preventative programs. I think there are a lot of strong services out there, especially in Switzerland in the health tech scene. We're working actively together with them. But I think where we focus mostly on is this middle segment. Once someone is sick, to get them appropriate support.
And I think that's an amazing example on how software can actually make a huge difference, because due to the manual processes or just a lack of data, what you are doing today with Grape has just simply not been possible before. So you really step in that game, fill this middle ground, and start supporting from day 7 or whatever it then is, actually, to help them to bring costs down and hopefully avoid a long-term sickness period. One question I have here is, when you say you start, providing help from day 7, for example, what help are you offering there? Is that very individual on case by case, or do you have some sort of packages and really a full-fledged support offering that you then level up and bring to the table?
That's also a very good question. Like, what happens when you actually ring the alarm bells earlier, right? And I would say there's a medical answer to it, and there's kind of an insurance answer to it. And the medical answer to it would be that the person gets medical support, definitely, optimally, like already before that. But sometimes that also happens too late, especially if we're talking about mental health diseases. It's very hard today in Switzerland to get appropriate support, and like get the right therapy and the right place to be, and depending on your situation. So that's something where an insurance can support with their case management to find the right medical healthcare service or place. And the other thing is also the just coordination, because especially if we're talking about burnouts and depressions, the people in those situations are usually not able to make decisions themselves, or just overview the whole situation, because there's so many stakeholders involved. There's the employer, the manager, there are several insurances sometimes involved, and then there's also the doctor. And the goal of a case management, that as we have it in place, is to just take some of this burden and of the whole administration around this off the employee's shoulder, and kind of manage that.
And how do you have to imagine that, in case I get sick, now it sort of rings the alarm bell. Who then gets informed about that? Is it my employer and, for example, the HR rep that is responsible for my case, who gets like, hey, Sylvan's alarm bell is ringing, you need to support him, or whoever? Or how does that work? Who sort of gets the alarm bell, and who then actually helps me? Is it the insurance? Is it the company? Or who steps in here?
I would say the optimal case is if the manager or the team of the sick employee can react at first. Also, that's also much more cost efficient, right? And those people know the situation much better. So the optimal case is if we can inform the manager. That's again as you mentioned, it beautifully done through software and automated. Whenever someone's sick for longer than 7 days, then the responding manager is informed and has to take certain actions, like having a call with the person, or like mapping out an action plan. There are several steps you can take there, and if this is not enough, then we can step into the external phase where we as a case manager can step in, but also then connecting this with medical service.
So you have like different levels of escalating an alarm bell, basically.
Exactly. And this all needs to be orchestrated, right? And
Of course.
somewhere in an easy overview.
So you offer the software to make all of that happen, but in the background, you of course also need to have the insurance present, right? To pay money if something happens, but also to collect money for all the companies that are getting insured. How do you solve that? Did you just start your own insurance company as a side hustle, or do you partner with existing insurances?
We do definitely partner. It's it's not that easy to start or just to get your own license, although that's something that's more coming more and more, and it's also getting more accessible, as we've seen in the banking area with the light licenses that, for example, Revolut and others also kind of started. I think that's also coming now in the insurance space more and more. But we do their work kind of with reinsurers that provide us with capital capacity, but also with their license.
Got it. And was it difficult to win them over as partners to actually, bring Grape into being, because they might have been reluctant and saw you as a competitor? Or was that actually easier than expected because they saw more business opportunities coming their way when they partner with you?
I think it was mixed, to be honest. We thought in general it was harder to just win them as partners, that they're even willing to kind of partner up with us, because we're also a direct competitor, right? I think in the space that we're acting in, there are around 16 to 18 competitors, so we are one more. Why should we partner up with them? We thought this part was bigger, but it appears that this one is not that big for the insurances, because they're currently struggling a lot with their internal legacy systems, with their speed of innovation. And so they're very willing to partner up with insurtechs and kind of also have some technology transfer kind of from the speedboat, the insurtech, and then incorporate those into their processes. But the thing that we thought would go faster was just in general the setup of the partnership, because there the differences between the different like incumbents insurers are massive. Like with some you could talk 2 years and you wouldn't be at an agreement, and with others you can manage to do it in 3 months. And so we had the luck that we found a partner that was very fast on his feet when it came to the setup of this partnership. And so that was the one that we also then kind of partnered up with.
Got it. Yeah, I can imagine. Big corporates, especially insurances, probably move at a different pace than you as a young startup. I wonder, how does your business model actually look like? I mean, you have the insurance that is provided by the insurance company in the background, but you also have the software. So how does your business model actually look like? How do you as Grape make money with all of that you're offering and providing?
From a business model perspective, we are purely set up as an insurance company. So we actually get the premiums ourselves on our bank account, and then we kind of manage the money, pay out the claims, right? If someone is sick, then we pay out the salary. And now the difference there, that we can actually offer software and also all those prevention programs, is that we are much more efficient when it comes to internal processes. So currently, you have to imagine that around 25 to 30% of all the premiums that an insurance collects is burned by their internal admin costs.
That's madness.
And so it is madness, yes. And it also it's very bad in Switzerland, and also compared to the European countries, we're even worse here. And so we are like 2 to 3 times more efficient when it comes just to the internal process. And parts of it is also connected to the Grape platform, like the way we interact with our customers, because most insurances do that through email, phone, and like some unstructured forms. And we just have it very structured, and that allows us to have a lot of automation internally. And then we use kind of this air that we gain in the admin costs to not kind of offer directly cheaper insurance, but offer the insurance with more services on top. And therefore, like the software also comes for free for all our clients, and also the prevention package is not something that you can just tick off and then you don't have it, but every customer and every employee has access to it.
This is fascinating because you don't go in as the cheaper solution, you go in as the probably similar or same priced solution, but with more benefits. And that efficiency that you win is thanks to due to the software that you actually make these savings possible. So that seems to be a really thought through and well-established business model that you created here.
I'm glad to hear that. And I think that there are several like dynamics also that make this decision very easy to make, whether you want to offer cheaper insurance or insurance that offers more services. Also, just if you look at the incentivation model that a broker has, right? He's paid relatively with a cut. So the cheaper the insurance, also the less kind of interest the broker has in promoting your solution. And so that's also, there's several dynamics, also other things that come up on the insurance side when it comes to your portfolio that kind of make this decision much more like interesting for you. But in the end, it was also like a decision that we would anyway would have made, because again, coming from our background and our mission to kind of scale prevention to everyone, that's the model that's then also everyone actually gets access to it.
Amazing. And if we zoom out a bit and look at the general trends in Switzerland when it comes to health solutions, me as an outsider, I have the feeling that we switch more from the reactive way of doing things, from, oh, I get sick, now I have to see a doctor and I get a pill, to a more preventative care. Is that also something that you see in the ecosystem, and maybe also at Grape yourself, that the preventative care gets more and more important, also becomes more valuable from a company and business perspective?
Definitely, yes. We do see it, probably not as fast as we wish it to be.
Yeah.
But the topic is really, it's a mega trend, I would say. And there's also like in the daily interactions with customers, the offering, or like just in general, the topics of prevention, absence management, they're much more on top of their minds. So they're actively looking for solutions. And that's also why we as Grape, we don't kind of do prevention and healthcare just ourselves, but really just partner up with as many strong health tech startups and health services as possible. So we just see that the wave is getting so big that it's not possible. It would also not make sense to kind of try to offer those services all ourselves, but really partner up with the ecosystem.
And I also saw on your website, you already do integrate with quite a lot of different players. So that really has been in your DNA from day one, as it seems.
Yes, I think we're very connected with as we're kind of integrating those three worlds, right? Software, insurance, and healthcare. And so we were always very open to learn from those three different worlds, and therefore also like to partner up. And we still do. We have like, I think now over 40 health partners on our side that we can directly kind of build the bridge to our customers. I think that's exciting to see growing.
Amazing. And I also wonder, you are active in the health space in Switzerland. Besides the shift towards the more preventative care, do you also see some other trends coming up and emerging here in Switzerland in the health space?
Yes, I would say the reactive part is something that's probably framed currently a bit too evil or too bad. But personally, I feel that the reactive part is also, it's a very important stage, probably the one that we've been focusing on the last 50 years too much. But I think there's just more and more services also coming up in the reactive space. And for me, when I just think about impact, like really improving someone's health, then I feel like that's the situation where it really counts. When someone is on the edge of being unhealthy, I think that's really when you can have an impact. And so I'm very glad to see that there are more and more software products, but also just purely healthcare products coming up in this space.
Amazing. And if we look a bit into the future, you have raised a total of 1.7 million Swiss francs in a seed round. So what have and what will you use the money for at Grape?
Well, as every other startup, assemble a great team and build a great product. But no, in our case, it's definitely like the insurance is something that's also quite capital heavy and requires, I would say, a minimal team amount or like a minimal team size that you'd have to be in order to really provide all the insurance services that are necessary. And then there's always like so much more potential on the software and the health service side that we're also trying to put into this innovation batch that we're currently having. So it's kind of wisely allocating between the three areas.
Amazing. And do you have like one big or super important milestone that you want to hit in 2023?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I can disclose this one, but there are definitely some revenue milestones that we want to achieve. We're at the moment we've just been 7-digit in premium volume now, so that was a big one for us. And I would say it's mostly on the impact side, where we also try to set KPIs. So not just on the revenue side and on the, I would say, purely insurance metric side, but we really start to also measure ourselves on how many employees used our service, how many like early preventative services could we place. So that's something where we also are now building up the KPIs and have some milestones there.
So you basically built the first volume, which I actually think is already quite impressive in the short amount of time that you've been active. But now you already focus on also making the retention happen, as it sounds. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment, yes.
Amazing. Really exciting what you're building here. So to wrap up the conversation, Fabian, we also have some rapid fire questions for you. I either give you a short question or different options to choose from, and you have to answer in one sentence. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What do you personally do to look after your health?
Number one is definitely sleep. So it's 8.5 hours per night at least. So I'm quite, I would say, I'm quite a long sleeper when it comes to that. And then nothing special, I would say. It's like sports, definitely also having enough time with family and friends, but then also maybe something more on the edge is probably 3-day fasting that I do every now and then. But I think sleep is the most important one to me.
Amazing. I love that. What compliment do you hear the most?
Oof. I think that maybe that I'm 100% in if I really like something. So I think I can be quite enthusiastic.
Cool. That's some good energy right there. And when somebody asks you, how are you? How often do you reply truthfully, the way that you really feel in that moment?
Well, honest answer, I would say in the business context, it's probably not that often. I think there it's more like the shiny side of things. But when it comes to the private life, friends, family, but also team members, so internally at Grape, I think I mostly can answer it truthfully.
And are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
I'd say night owl by nature, but early bird by choice and also by duty.
And by training.
Yes, both.
I like that. And the last one for you today, Fabian, what are you most qualified to give advice about?
Well, I have to say employee insurances, right? But
Of course.
next to that, like as someone who's very like interested in health, it's definitely sports and nutrition and fasting. I think that's something that's still very fascinating to me and also to learn much more in this area. And there's also like in productivity, that's something again connected to the high performance. We just love to automate things like with Todoist, Zapier, all kinds of other tools.
Amazing. Fabian, that was a really cool conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's super impressive what you and your team are building at Grape, and I wish you lots of success and all the best for the future. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Silvan.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.